I have started. I've started the recording. Um, so I guess we can get started. So I think we can get started. Namaskar, Sarni. Today we're going to present the Kashmiri Shaivism Workshop series, session number 4. The Kashmiri Shaivism Workshop series is being presented to you on behalf of Kashmir Overseas Association, Kashmiri Pandit Heritage Preservation Committee. Vijay Dhar is the lead for our Kashmir Shaivism sessions. So he's going to start now. Vijayji, over to you. Please go ahead.
Namaskar, Sarni. I see we have about 17 people. So considering that we don't have too many people, I was thinking that maybe we can have more interactive section and entertain some questions while we are doing that. Is that okay, uh, Dilipji? Or do you think we're better off just leaving it for the end?
I mean, if somebody has a question and we can always entertain that question. I think that's a good offer from
Yeah.
you. I think let's just continue with our format in
Okay.
the interest of the time because we have a lot to cover today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
continue with the format, and then if somebody has a question in the middle, we can always stop and answer that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm sharing now. Basically, we had an introductory session where we talked about the Kashmir Shaivism, in a one-page kind of a summary, and then we said why it is relevant for the current scenario, you know, the human condition, and then it was not only about the history, knowing about our history, but really applying our wisdom to the current situation in the world. And then we had quite a few questions from that session, and then we covered those in the second session where we spent some time on those, more time on those, and then I went ahead and shared some of my experiences and pictures and all from my trip to Kashmir, particularly in the context of Kashmir Shaivism, and particularly we talked about some of the retreat that I had, Kashmir Shaivism retreat that I had in Kashmir, and we discussed some of the heritage sites that I visited at that time, and then also over the years, what places I have visited and what their importance is from the context of Kashmir Shaivism and so on. And at that time, we had this input that we should jump directly over the key concepts. So I've changed the outline flow here. So this session 4 is going to be focusing on key concepts. And as you would guess, these key concepts, Kashmir Shaivism is a very rich and vast subject. And this is something that people spend decades learning. And it's not something that we'll be able to cover, obviously, in 1 hour. And even 2 hours we'll not be able to cover it all. So it's not going to be an in-depth discussion, but we're going to be basically giving an overview. And uh, you know I have some kind of an outline that I have come up with, which I'll show you. But before that, I also wanted to acknowledge that right in the first session or second session we had many questions, and one of the questions was about the role of Shakti in Kashmir Shaivism, and I had said that I would be covering that in this part of the outline, this part of the sessions, and so let me just go ahead and get started. And I wanted to just give you a recap that I had shared a one-page summary of Kashmir Shaivism, and now we have a chance to go and dig deeper into some of those things that I mentioned in that one-cap summary. And that summary was basically saying that all of reality is the manifestation of one supreme consciousness. So whatever we are experiencing, seeing, or not seeing is all a manifestation of supreme consciousness, and we call that Shiva. And that manifestation has got the Swatantriya Shakti, that is the independence or the freedom to manifest itself in all possibilities, in any or all possibilities. So that Swatantriya Shakti is very unique to Kashmir Shaivism. And the reality as we perceive is is Maya. It's called Maya, and this concept of Maya also is in other parts of Hinduism before Kashmir Shaivism. But the difference is that Kashmir Shaivism considers this Maya to be a real manifestation of supreme consciousness. It's not some mithya or some kind of a illusion, but it is a manifestation of Shiva or the supreme consciousness using the five energies it has. And those five energies are Chit Shakti, Anand Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. And we're going to be discussing some of that in this detailed session. Also, we discussed in this one-page summaries that supreme consciousness performs five acts. And those are like in most of Hinduism, there is a thing about creation, sustaining, and dissolving and dissolution. And that is Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. But in Kashmir Shaivism, there is also this obscuring and revealing. These are the other five, these are other acts that supreme consciousness performs in this in manifestation of this world, the way we experience it. And these two are very important additions, and we're going to be discussing those also. And the recognition of this Shiva Shakti as our true self is a capability multiplier. We call Siddhi, we call it Siddhi. That means if we are able to recognize ourselves in this way, which we mostly are not able to most of the time, because we have experience of these impurities, and we've got to talk about those impurities and limitations, and that's also part of this today's session. What are the limitations because of which we do not actually see ourselves as actually manifestation of Shiva and Shakti? And but that is the aim for Kashmir Shaivism, to really have that self-recognition or pratyabhijna that we are the manifestation of Shiva Shakti. And uh, this manifestation of Shiva Shakti is the vehicle with which we can actually achieve that self-recognition. And there are four types of means or upayas. In Kashmiri, we call it wapai. We have these upayas to be able to recognize ourselves as Shiva and Shakti, and those are Anavapaya, Shakti Upaya, Shambhava Upaya, and Anupaya, and I'm going to be discussing those also today. Again, as I said, I'll basically be just touching these subjects. It's like wetting our feet, and we'll not be able to go deep into it. Uh, but my aim is to make sure that I put all of this in the context of today's world and application or relevance of all of this in today's world. And lastly, I said that anyone and everyone can achieve this self-recognition irrespective of caste, creed, gender, status. So somebody in Zimbabwe or Chad or someplace, everybody has this capability, and everybody is the manifestation of that Shiva and Shakti. And all of us, we don't recognize it ourselves. So I will not go to this thing on the side where I had actually, when I showed this in the first session, I talked about some of the ways that this Shiva Shakti manifests itself in our day-to-day experiences, whether we feel hunger or we feel thirst or we feel peace or faith or patience or modesty or whatever. All of these things that we feel, they are all manifestation of that Shakti. And this link that I had shown here actually does say that. So there are so many thousands of different ways that this manifestation happens. And uh, and we will start touching on some of the things, and hopefully it will start making sense why that is true. Uh, uh, and we had said, in the first session, we said that, it is all relevant for today. And the reason why it's relevant for today is that actually world is going through a crisis. And, we have already gone through 53 years of Earth Day celebration since 1970. And the planet is going into more and more crisis, and everybody's thinking are saying that human being is the cause of this, and not the insects, not the wild animals and all, but human beings are the cause of this. And that's where rethinking humanity is what is important, and that's where the relevance of Kashmir Shaivism came in. I'm not going to go through this slide, but I'm just trying to remind you that this uh, exercising the exercising the concepts of Kashmir Shaivism, we could actually be starting to rethink humanity. And hopefully, I just wanted to talk about this so that whatever is coming next is in the context of this aim. Um, so basically, we have been practicing an old story for the last 300 years of colonization, where we need to change that and rethink humanity. We had to destroy that old story and create a new story in the age of freedom. And that Swatantriya Shakti is basically going to give us that freedom. And we use our human body ourselves, which is a temple of all Shaktis. And these Shaktis are all correlated. As I said, there are thousands of Shaktis that we experience every minute, every second, every day. And these Shaktis are all correlated within our body, and they are also correlated outside our body in this manifest world. So this is the theme or context because of which I think that this is all relevant and in really reshaping or redirecting ourselves in the world. So I want to acknowledge that the content of this key concepts session has been taken largely from um, my reading of books from Lakshmanju Academy, attending their sanghas, retreats, and some of the books that I have bought. Actually, I bought most of their books, but certainly the two that I mentioned here are the main ones that I have kind of taken content from. And also this book, Tantra Illuminated, which the philosophy and practice of a timeless tradition by Christopher Wallace, which has got actually 23 hours in the Audible edition, and I have heard it many times. Very rich, very very clear. Though it does take some time to kind of repeatedly hear it and understand it, connect the dots, but it's very clear and very relevant for current days. And I highly encourage people who are interested in this subject to read that particular book or buy that Audible version and germinate yourself in these thoughts, because that germination of our thinking in that kind of a teaching is a part of this one of the upayas that I was talking about. Chris Wallace in his Tantra Illustrated on page 36 says that he has written this book not only because he has achieved some expertise in this subject, because he studied this in Berkeley, Rochester, Oxford, and all. And he did his PhD at Berkeley, most recently, 2014. And and he wrote this book in 2017. But in addition to that, he says that despite its massive historical and contemporary significance, this knowledge or wisdom is not yet well known compared to the Tibetan Buddhism, Buddhist Tantra that is very well known throughout the West. And most importantly, he has seen firsthand how powerfully these teachings of non-dual Shaiva Tantra resonate with his Western yoga practitioners. And he has come to believe that this tradition possesses some of the most effective teachings and technologies for the human transformation. And that and that is particularly relevant for our time. So this is all taken from his book, page number 36. So I just wanted to kind of show that this was why I was motivated also to really see the relevance of this in contemporary world and kind of share this. So I sent in the chat today the sequence of topics I'm going to cover, and so I'm going to be talking about Shiva and Shakti in Kaulatrika worldview of non-Shaiva Tantra. And as I said earlier, I would have actually gone through this non-Shaiva Tantra history and what are the different schools, but we decided to skip all of that now and come back to that later. But this Kaulatrika is one of the 9 schools of Shaiva Tantra, and according to that's what I'm going to be basically talking a little bit about, and the fact that the goal of self-realization and obstacles that are there in front of that, achieving that goal, limitations and impurities. I'm going to be talking about those, how we identify ourselves in the world, and how that reflects our distance from our realization, our self-realization. I'm going to be discussing that through some pictorial kind of uh, content. And then I'm going to be talking about the 36 tattvas in Kashmir Shaivism versus the 25 tattvas before Kashmir Shaivism. And, in those 36 tattvas, I'm going to be talking about the limitations, five kanchukas, which basically uh, put a veil in front of us that we don't recognize ourselves uh, in the true nature, of ourselves. And then I'm going to be covering five powers of God or Shiva, five acts of God, and then we'll probably have a Q&A break. I don't know how much we'll be able to cover. And then the very important concept of speech or paravak, the how we conceptualize and how we express ourselves, and how Saraswati and all is linked to that, and how alphabets are linked to that, and how sentences and words and all, how that is. It's a very deep subject, and but I'll just cover that at a high level. And then there are five states of awareness, three malas or impurities, and the means, lastly, which is the most important and one. What are the means? How we can dissolve these impurities and limitations, uh, which will enable us to do that self realization. And that self realization, that is, as I said, is comes in stages. And as it unfolds, as that self realization unfolds, it gives us powers. It gives us not only happiness and blessing in our day-to-day life, but also it gives us some additional new powers to accomplish more. So we'll talk about those means, and after all that, come back to that question that was asked early about the importance of Shakti in being able to perform these upayas, and that's the reason why Shakti is so important. I'm going to talk about it. And lastly, I'll be talking about the interplay with Vedanta, and I'll talk about aesthetics and bhakti, how that those concepts became so easy to understand by using Kashmiri Shaivism, and then resources for the modern world. So these are the 10 things that I want to accomplish, and let me just dive into it right away. So, non-Shaiva Tantra is a spiritual movement which is most clearly typified by Kaulatrika lineage. And this originated in and around Kashmir, that reached its peak in the 9th and 12th centuries, 9th to 12th centuries. And this is also called Kashmir Shaivism. There were other lineages which fall outside of Kashmir Shaivism, and that is all supposed to be covered under the history section. This non-Shaiva Tantra is characterized by emphasis on direct experience of the divine reality, and that is the recognition of the true self that has a transcendental and an immanent aspect. So there are aspects to that knowledge or that experience which is transcendental in nature, which cannot be explained with our normal thinking and brain process, and it can only be experienced. And then in addition to that, there is the experiential aspect, immanent aspect, and the transcendental aspect is called Shiva, and the immanent aspect that we experience day to day is called Shakti. And so we'll talk about that in the map of this world, which is going to be shown in the tattvas, and which is going to come soon in the next couple of pages. And Shiva is the pure consciousness that is ultimate ground of being, and Shakti is the flowing energy of Shiva that manifests the entire universe, including all of us. And Shiva and Shakti are not separate; they're actually one, and that's why it's called non-dual Shiva Tantra. And in earlier Hindu uh, uh, knowledge system, it's called Advaita. And Shiva Shakti is the transcendental divinity or God. That's what we call God. But you know, uh, God is not a murti there or a person there or something, or with four hands or eight hands or whatever. It's that Shiva and Shakti, uh, which has been described in these few bullets, which is God. So I'm here. I'm showing the first page of the first book of Kashmiri Shaivism, which basically has the first awakening, second awakening, and the third awakening. And these are some of the shlokas and the crisp meaning of these shlokas. I'm just showing that here, which actually we have been doing. We have been studying this in the sangha that we do every Saturday, and today there was one. So here basically it really talks about this. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but it really talks about what I was saying here, that there are obstacles for self-realization. I mean, to experience divinity is once in oneself, in others, and in all beings is the goal of non-dual Shiva Tantra, and the obstacles are Anavamala, that I'm not divine. That's the Anavamala. Mayamala, I'm different from everybody else. I'm different from everything else. And so I see myself in that light. And Karmamala, that means I strive to give myself an advantage over everything or everybody else. These are the impurities that we have, because of which we are not able to see ourselves or do the self-realization. And so these obstacles can be overcome or dissolved with spiritual practices or upayas to dissolve our impurities and remove limitations. And we'll talk about those in the next one. So here is the first concept I'm going to show. So how do I hide this again? Sorry. Control, Ashwini, what was that?
I'll try to remember. Control Alt Shift H.
Control Alt Shift H only. So
Bhagwan tawai this month.
okay. So how do we identify ourselves in this world? There are this 5-layered self. So we say, oh, I'm rich or I'm poor. Some people kind of identify themselves like that, and they get engrossed in that thinking all the time, and they're always about making some more money and alleviating their poorness or whatever. Or some people identify themselves as I'm fat, or I'm beautiful, I'm handsome, I'm short, whatever. And that's what their identification is, and they are always kind of looking at trying to improve that. Or I'm stupid, or I'm smart. That's another way. And some people say, "Oh, I'm energized. I feel so great. I feel so happy, and I want to do stuff and things." So these are all, I'm energized. And some people, they get into this trance and meditate and all, and they get into this thoughtlessness kind of a state. And lastly, some people, they feel blessed all the time, and they're always happy. Blessed means like, oh, everything is great. So these are the concentric circles, which basically show that, if we identify ourselves with the stuff outside, like car, okay, I own a Tesla, I own whatever, I own a mansion, those kind. These are all the vastu, deha, and heart, mind, or the energy body. Where I'm saying, oh, I'm stupid, or I'm smart. Then the next layer is prana, the fundamental life force, which basically makes us feel energized. How we breathe, how we exercise, and stuff. And then the next one is turiya, which is transcendent void, where we get into meditation and you're in a thoughtless kind of state. And the last one, the most important one, and the most essential one is the karana, is this chitta. I'm blessed. This is where they come from, and these are the layers of our being, our reality. And the outer layers are the gross body, and they are less essential. This is the stool sharira, and then the intermediate is the subtle body, and it has got when we go to the tattvas, we'll see that there are 17 tattvas that are associated with this subtle body. And then there is this causal body, which is the para level, which is the most essential level. This is the Karan, this is the cause of everything. So it's like these, this Russian dolls, one inside the other. You just take out one layer, and then there's another layer, another layer, another layer. These are some of the. This is the way we identify ourselves. And this illustration has come from Tantra Illuminated. And so each layer is pervaded by all layers deeper than it. So, for example, the body layer, they have this, our body, it has got all the layers pervading this. Means mind, heart, mind is there in it. The prana, the fundamental life force, prana is manifesting itself in the body, and the last one, this chitta, the supreme consciousness, that is manifesting itself in this body. So body is the one which has got all these manifestations in it, and or layers, and the body is special because it's the only layer where all the layers pervade. And suffering arises from mistakenly identifying ourselves with these grossest layers. When we identify ourselves with this grossest layer and say, "Oh, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm rich, I'm poor," this is where the suffering comes from. And uh, in the Kola practices, they used to have a lot of these cremation grounds practices where they used to actually see these people dying all the time, so they could deprive or they could detach themselves from this body and understand that this is not who I am. And so most of the people are actually overly identified with body or with heart mind due to the distorted stories and narratives that we built throughout our life and even before our life. Even when we are kind of in the womb of our mother, there are these stories that get built, and we call these vikalpas or narratives. And the prana layer, which is quite interesting and important, it is the layer where it depends on exercise, food, sleep, relaxation, and our psychology. So it's a very important one, which is actually getting weakened and weakened in this current society. And the shunya layer, which is the meditation layer or deep sleep layer, this is a layer that Kashmir Shaivism does not uh, want people to be in. Kashmir Shaivism wants people to be in the chitta layer always, a blessed layer, where we actually bring that blessing into our daily life. And we don't understand this. We don't understand this aspect of ourselves in us because it's so pervading. It's always there. Whatever I'm doing right now, I'm speaking, and you're hearing, and you're understanding. All of this is being done. It's all happening because that chitta layer that we have, and we don't feel it. Just like fish swimming in the ocean or in the river doesn't feel that there's water. They don't know what water is all about. So understanding that chitta layer is our self-realization, and that's what we call shivoham. So this is the mala or impurity of self-identification. That is just one example that kind of tells us, according to Kashmir Shaivism, how we identify ourselves. And uh, everyone, all of us have a different weighted mean of where we identify ourselves. Some people identify ourselves, with the body. Some are more, prana level kind of people, and uh, some are more heart, mind, energy, body kind of level people who are always in their stories and narratives, living in their stories and narratives. And nowadays we see that a lot, with the WhatsApp kind of thing, where everybody has narratives and stories, and they live in those, and they don't get out of that and stuff. So Paul Muller Ortega, who's one of the Kashmir Shaivism experts, he calls this individual identities assemblage point, where it's basically a weighted band. So all of us are living in a different part of this diagram. So that was about this, and I wanted to kind of show you a page from the book that I was referring to, where in Sanskrit, Utpal Deva. By the way, Utpal Deva was from my village where I was born, and he has written this scripture, and this Chris Wallace has kind of picked up this particular stanza, and he's translated that, experientially realizing the primacy of the conscious self as the knower and agent, and realizing the other layers of individuality from void to body are mere attributes of this conscious self. This is what characterizes immersion into the divine samavesha. So this is basically, this is the literal translation of this thing from this book. And then he has kind of uh, delved on this a little more here. The deepest spiritual experience of reality consists of full realization that the divine consciousness is our essence, true essence, and that all the layers of our being, stuff, body, mind, prana, and void, are that we are accustomed to identify ourselves with, are in fact the ever-changing expressions of that consciousness. So that consciousness is the only true reality. So now I'm going to talk about the tattvas, or the elements. And, I'm going to talk about the Indic model before and after Kashmir Shaivism. But before that, what does the science say about the tattvas, or elements? In science, interactions between objects out there is deemed as independent of the subject, us. Means how sodium interacts with, uh, you know, uh, hydrogen, or how sodium interacts with chlorine and forms sodium chloride and all. It's all happening out there. I have nothing to do with that. The subject is not involved in that. And based on all of that, there are lots of experimentation and all. They build this periodic table with elements, and we have all of these 100 and odd number of elements in the periodic table, and that's what constitutes the elements in science. So in this, it's independent of the subject. But modern science does not ask who is designing the experiments to conclude the properties of the elements, and who is observing the results of those experiments, and who is agreeing with the classification of these into the periodic table. It's us, it's the scientists and all. And what is propelling them? It's this consciousness in them which is propelling them, and that's not being recognized by the science. Science just thinks that the world is out there, and we are just an instrument observing that world, and that's it. In the Indic system, the objects and their perception by subjects is what the Indic system is based on. Who is the subject? Who is kind of doing the observation? And what is that? That's what the thing is. And that's the reason why supreme consciousness in us, who is doing this observation and who is the subject, um, uh, is basically important. And there are most basic 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, void, which are perceived by the subject. Who? Me. All of us, we see these basic 5 elements, and these are the gross elements in this tattva system. But in addition to that, there are 20 others, including sensations and organs of actions, organs of knowledge, intellect, nature, individual, all of that. These that help in the perception process, because without those, the intellect or sensations and all, we would not be able to perceive anything. So there are these 20 elements which are on top of these 5 gross elements, and the total of 25 in most of the Indic systems before the 8th century. But what Kashmiri Shaivism brought was the 36 elements. Actually, there was 36 plus 1. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But this happened post 8th century, and this 11 plus 1 extra include this transcendental and divine reality. So, like I was saying earlier, there's a Shiva and Shakti, and these, the most of this perception, or this knowledge base that happens, it happens in that transcendental kind of realm, and this tattva system is going to show you that. So here are the 25 tattvas that are there. And then, by the way, this comes from the Lakshmanju Academy. And so these are the 25. I talked about the, uh, earth, water, fire, air, ether. These are the most basic Mahabhutas, 5 great elements. Then there are these 5 sensations: hearing, touching, taste, smell. So these are all tanmatras. And then there are organs of action. These are 5 sensations. There are organs of action, and then there are organs of knowledge. Organs of action is feet, hands, sexual organs, tongue. So all of these are actions of organs of action, and they are called karmendriyas, the 5 of them. And then there are these jnanendriyas, which is organs of knowledge, and these are the organs of knowledge, not the sensations, but these are organs of knowledge. These are the ones which sense things. So air, skin, eyes, tongue, nose, these are the organs that sense these sensations. And they're called Janendras. And then on top of these is mind, ego, intellect, nature, and individual. Nature is Prakriti. So all of this world is Prakriti. And Purusha is me, you. All of us are Purusha. So this is the highest level here of these 25 tattvas. And this is actually something that was realized about 1,000 years before Kashmir Shaivism came, by Patanjali and by Vedanta system and Sankhya system. This is what the picture was. But in the 8th century onwards, these are the additional things that came. The modeling was done, thinking was done, and the meditative process that they used to achieve this additional level of insight, they basically added these other elements. So this is the limitations. First, Kanchuka, the limitations. So people were not able to kind of see why we don't see ourselves, as a manifestation of Shiva and Shakti. So they basically came up with these 5 coverings or limitations, where we have limited action, limited knowledge, limited attachment, limited time, and limited space. These are the 5 coverings that veil us. They prevent us from seeing anything beyond this in the transcendental world. So this is all transcendental. And so these are the 11 tattvas: absolute, macrocosmic consciousness, and limitations by consciousness. So this is the veils, limitations, and malas for concealing and the fullness of divine reality from the world of duality. So this world of duality, this is all world of duality where we see things differently. And this layer, this yellow layer, is the one which basically prevents us from seeing the highest transcendental world, which is on the top. And so this highest transcendental world, which is on the top, is Shiva, Shakti, Sadashiva, Ishvara, and Shuddha Vidya. And we won't have time. Actually, this book that I was talking about has got like hours kind of describing each one of these separately. And obviously, I don't have that time. I'm just touching on these concepts. So Shuddha Vidya is basically when the knowledge is not limited by any of these things, then we call that Shuddha Vidya. And similarly, Ishvara, Sadashiva, it's very well explained in the book about, for example, Ishvara is the God that, like Allah is also Ishvara, and Jesus is also Ishvara, and Krishna is Ishvara, and all these things. Whereas Shiva and Shakti are the transcendental, above everything else. These are pure supreme consciousness. Okay, so and that this Maya concept of Maya, which is like basically everything below this Maya is the reality as we see it. And each of the top 5 pure tattvas contain all the 5 Shaktis I was talking about. 5 Shaktis, and we're going to discuss these. These are 5 Shaktis in these 5 things. So I'm going to be covering that next. But essentially, this top layer, this green one, is absolute non-duality, or actually Shiva and Shakti is absolute non-duality, and these malas, which actually show us the duality, the limited being. And when we said that those 5 layers we were talking about, we see ourselves as limited being because of these malas, and they don't allow us to see the chit, the supreme consciousness, just like fish cannot see the water around them in which they're swimming. So these are the tattvas, and this actually has been shown. This limitation that I talked about here, Kala, Vidya, and all Raga, these are all mapped to all these Shaktis, Chit Shakti, Anand Shakti, which I'm going to talk about, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and all. So this is the all pervading Chit Shakti, that is the consciousness, and all eternal bliss, and all fullness, all knowing. See, all knowing, this particular thing is mapped to Vidya. Vidya is limited knowledge. Most of us, we have knowledge, like whatever I'm telling you, sharing with you, This is knowledge that I've gained from books and stuff like that. But this is limited knowledge, because the more I try to learn, the more I know that I don't know enough. And that is the limited knowledge. Whereas this all knowing is in this transcendental world, Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. That means all doing. I'm able to do anything, everything. So, but that limitation, that limited action or kala is basically kind of showing that, oh, I cannot do certain things. So uh, these are the limitations that prevent us from kind of seeing the reality. So it becomes limited action becomes karma. Limited knowledge actually translates into arrogance that I know so much. Limited attachment, makes us crave for things. Because we have ichha. This is mapping to ichha. We have ichha, but it is limited, and we start craving for things. And then limited time, we start becoming guilty, or we have fantasy about future or guilty about past. So this is limited time and limited space, causality. Something leads to something else. So it's like uh, limited space is like where you're kind of doing something for yourself versus doing something as a service to the world. So these are the kind of limitations because of which we become mean, we become arrogant, we become you know greedy, and so on, or we become depressed. These are all the things that I'm trying to show here as the this thing and the map. And again, this has come from some Lakshmanju Academy, and actually they taught this in October in Kashmir. And this is another map. I won't go through this, but this is a Chris Wallace's map. Same thing. All these, Janendra, Karmendras, all that stuff, and then Buddhi and Purusha and Prakriti and all these limitations, and then Shiva and Shakti, and then it says at the top. So basically, this is Maya, this is manifestation. Shiva and Shakti, this all of this is manifestation. This is what we experience. Okay, and and he also talks about this. I said 36 plus 1. This is the sacred, the highest level, heart, the heart, Shiva Shakti in perfect fusion. This is the highest level, the zero level, and it's also called para level. So tattva number 0, or the paramartha, that is the undefinable essence. It is neither transcendental nor it's not transcendental, but it is simultaneously transcendental and encompasses everything. So whatever we are doing here and whatever is beyond us, this world that as we understand it, and beyond this world as we don't understand it, all of that, including all of that, is this tattva number 0. It excludes nothing. It's a field of all possibilities that explains, everything is included in this. Even the vacuum, which is not manifested itself yet into anything, even that, which is called akashic energy, even that is tattva number 0.
Vijayji, we're about at 10:45 a.m. So we are 45 minutes into the webinar. Should we just bring up that first quiz just to give yourself a pause and then let people answer the first quiz?
I don't think they will be able to answer all the questions in the first quiz. Let me touch on these two, 5 acts of God and 5 powers of God, and then we can do the questions. Okay. So let me just do this quickly. Okay. So the 5 powers of God are Chit Shakti, Anand Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. And power of consciousness or awareness, which is Chit Shakti, is foundation of all reality. This is the only factor present in any experience whatsoever, whether we have pain or pleasure or whatever. This is the Chit Shakti that manifests there. We are conditioned to experience the objects of awareness and not the awareness itself. The Chit Shakti is the awareness itself, but we are always conditioned to experience the objects. And experience of awareness happens either spontaneously or through practice, upayas, to dissolve our mental constructs or vikalpas that project our reality. The way we see the reality is through our mental constructs. And if we want to dissolve them, the upayas are used. So that's one. Anand Shakti is the power of bliss. So bliss resides in consciousness, like heat resides in fire. And Ananda is not Sukha. Ananda is in loving reality, independent of circumstances. Even the stench of the foulest excrement is, is experienced as Anand by the people who are in this state, who achieve that self-realization. Okay. And for example, our breathing, we're breathing all the time. Every second we are breathing, and we don't realize that. And we don't realize the fact that we are actually being breathed every second. And without that, that the biggest gift that we have, without that, we won't live, and we won't have the Chit Shakti and Ananda Shakti. So Ananda Shakti is coming from that constant breathing that we have. Okay. And if we start realizing that every second, we'll say, oh, how blessed we are. That's the Anand Shakti. Even if we are smelling the foulest of extreme excrement, we'll be happy that, oh, I'm alive to be able to smell it, and we'll feel good about it. And Ichha Shakti is power of will or creative impulse. It's not desire, but it is precognitive creative urge towards self-expression. And that is self-expression of Shiva into the world. And this is the impulse behind the manifestation of universe, behind each of my artistic expressions and innovations. So if I'm doing some innovations in the field of clean energy or semiconductors or something, the Ichha Shakti is actually urging me to do that. And so it's basically behind all the objectives that we create in front of us. And this is a manifestation of the world. And then there is Jnana Shakti, which is the power of knowing. So this is, in order to be able to convert Ichha into action, we have to have the knowledge. One must equip oneself with the necessary knowledge through discipline training to be able to express Ichha into Kriya. And then, of course, Kriya is all of the above, would add up to nothing without Kriya or divine action. Most successful when it is enjoyed for its own sake in celebration of the divine rather than as a means to selfish ends. Okay. And all of these five Shaktis, there is a sixth one, which is the meta power of Swatantra Shakti. As I said, Kashmiri Shaivism, this is very unique to Kashmiri Shaivism. This is the innate freedom and autonomy in expressing any of the, ichhas, any of the power, any of the knowledge, any of the action. All of that can be done, and there is independence in this. These are the five powers of God, or Shiva Shakti. And if you see, our body has got all of these powers in the body. I'm going to talk about this maybe next time, but let me just quickly go into. By the way, I just wanted to kind of show you. No, let me not do this right now. The five acts of God are, I think you all know, there is the creation, there is a maintenance, and there is this dissolution. And as I said, the concealment and occlusion, forgetting. And this is why we forget our true nature. This is actually five acts of God. This is inbuilt into into this creation. This is the hard core of the creation, and it is necessary. It's not something which is bad. It's necessary, because without this creation would not work. And similarly, the anugraha, which is the revealing part, this is also something that is part of this hardcore code of the creation of this manifestation. And along with the concealment comes the revealing. So self-realization happens when this act of God gets exercised. So this Shiva Nataraja is actually a very symbolic picture which shows all of these five Shaktis, or five acts. So I've kind of shown here that there is this creation is represented by the drum on the right hand, and maintenance is the Abhaya Mudra, which is the lower hand, this Abhaya Mudra, this one here. And then Samhara is destruction of, because this is the fire on this other hand, and so on. So the lower left hand is basically concealing the chest, heart. this hand, this thing is concealing the chest, and then the lastly the raised foot. This raised foot is the anugraha. Having the grace of the foot. We always go and bow in front of the foot and touch our head with the foot of the god, and that is basically getting the anugraha, asking for the anugraha, that let him reveal himself to me. And so these are the five acts. And there is something here from the recognition sutra of Kshemendra here. This is this thing, and this is the um, translation. And these five acts are responsible for emergence of distant supernovas in the astrophysical world, as well as our moment-to-moment cognition of objects, Abhasa theory. So these five acts happen every second in our body, and we're going to talk about that next in future. So let me just pause here, and so we want to go ahead and show the quiz.
Yes, let me go ahead and show the quiz. Before actually just showing the quiz, just the thought came to my mind is that I will give you a couple of, like a minute, 1 minute, just to gather your thoughts. We can before, just we have a pause of 1 minute. It's 10:52. At 10:53, I will share the quiz, so that then you can answer that. Okay. So because too much information was shared, and some very good profound concepts were shared. So I would like to give you some time just so that you gather your thoughts before you answer the questions. Okay, so I'm going to launch the quiz. Please go ahead and answer them.
I'm sorry, we spent very little time on all of these questions, and they may not have been absorbed fully. These are difficult concepts.
So I think we
Should I
have
stop sharing, by the way?
no, yeah. I
No,
mean,
okay.
you could stop sharing. I mean, the poll is the questions are on the top of it, though. Everybody's able to see it. I do see that 16 people out of 21 attendees have answered some questions, and people are still answering them. Ashwini, what were you saying?
I think it's okay to give a couple minute or so, because as you were saying, the questions are not straightforward. So let's make sure everyone has the required time they need.
Right. Yeah, so we have about 17 answers for one of the questions, and out of 21, I think maybe some people are not able to answer it. It's okay. But I think I'm still seeing that people are answering other questions. I'll just wait for some more seconds. Okay, so I think let's end the poll right now, and we can then share the results of the poll, and I will talk about it briefly. Okay, so I'm sharing the results of Vijayji, why don't you go over that? Are you able to see the results, Vijayji?
Yeah. So you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, let's just briefly talk about that, So
Yeah. So
okay.
Shakti basically is the aspect of manifestation. It's the manifestation aspect. So this is the last one, and it's not Shiva is transcendental and so on. So other words are just kind of misleading. And five limitations. These are the kanchukas. Five limitations in the Tattva model. The kanchukas, and not shaktis, not means, not powers. Kanchukas are the limitations. And the most subtle level of self-identification uh, is a blissful level of chitta. It's not suffering because those are the outer layers. It's not pride, which is basically also outer layers. It's not richness, which is the outermost layer. So it's the bliss, the central layer. And anugraha is the divine power to uh, reveal the reality, self revelation. And it's not a conceal, because that's a different one. And dissolve and create, so those are not the ones. So dissolve and create are the first and second and the first. So this one, conceal, is the fourth one. Okay. So these are the answers. Did I answer all?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think yes.
I don't think you are sharing the results pane of the window.
So I can share the results pane.
No,
This is the
you didn't see my. Are you not seeing my? I was sharing it.
No, that was grayed out.
Really? I
आपको
don't know why. I thought I was sharing it all the time. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know why it's grayed out. Is it because Vijayji is sharing, or what's going on?
should I stop sharing?
Can you stop sharing? We'll try that. How's it now?
We don't see anything except for our profiles here.
Really? Okay, let me share it one more time. I'm sharing it one more time.
We see the quiz without the results.
Yeah, we'll have to figure this one out. I don't know.
Maybe you have to share the whole desktop.
Okay, I can do that. Let me share the whole thing here.
Amritaji is
Okay,
saying
here.
that he sees it.
Can you see it now?
I can see your chat, but looks like we'll have to sort it out offline. Amritaji is apparently is able to see it. I don't see it, so I think we'll have to take that offline.
Okay, sure. No worries. We'll take it offline. But
So quickly, I wanted to see if there are any questions before we go to the next one, because next session we'll be talking about the other concepts, and hopefully we'll be able to complete. I think we should be able to complete the whole thing next session. But today, are there any questions?
there was. I don't see any questions right now open in the Q&A. Yeah. So one question came up. Yeah, the question is anugraha same as grace?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the short answer is yes. Then the other question is trika different than kola trika?
No, Kolatrika are actually, you see, there are these gradations. They they were different, but they were integrated by Abhinav Gupta, and this is considered to be one. You know, they are all there's this is not a clean cut kind of a thing. They are all influencing each other. So Kola led to Trika, but Trika, which has got more of Kola element in it, is the Kola Trika. Kola is more extreme left. Trika is more, centrist.
Okay, so we have Shiban Warkuji has a hand raised, so I will just open it up. So Shibanji, you can talk. Shibanji, now you can unmute yourself and talk. Shiban Warkuji,
Yeah.
yeah.
Trika system is this Nar Shiv Shakti Nara. Is that the Trika system you're talking about?
Yeah, Shiv Shakti and
Nara.
Nara is the or Jiva,
Jiva.
the Jiva. Yeah,
In what
that is
way
the
does
Trika.
it differ from the Kola Trika system?
So Kola has got some more of this, leftist. There are some things that were in the Kola system which were uh, not accepted socially because they were too extreme, like this, cremation ground activities. There was more. Some of the upayas were not socially accepted and all. So it was too extreme, and people were not. Though they were having sound reason to be able to, the reason, for example, the cremation ground thing was, oh, they wanted to get rid of that attachment to deha, attachment to the body. So, but they were considered to be too extreme in the society in the ninth 10th century. So Trika basically brought it back to become more acceptable. And but it took the gist or the essential element from there, from Kola, because that was important.
Thank you.
Okay, so Rakeshji had hand raised, so please unmute yourself and talk.
Yeah, so Vijayji, thank you for all that you have done. Really, it is very great. And it's a beautiful summarization of everything, right? Of what is in essence you have extracted. Having said that, about this Trika and Kol Trika philosophy, right? So my father used to say we are Tikus, and so we are the believers of Trika philosophy. We are from Trika philosophy, right? So I just wanted to say that if our surnames are somehow tied up to these different philosophies, like Trika philosophy and Kol Trika or
I think they are, but I'm not an expert on that because
other.
I have developed I have developed interest in this only in the last 4 or 5 years and
Uh-huh.
studied it, but I have not studied the lineage of the last names and stuff. But I'm
Uh,
sure, I'm quite sure that there is a actually I've heard that Tikkus are all more aligned to the Sri Vidya system, that is the Saraswati or the Tripur Sundari kind of
Right.
that kind of lineage. So which
Mm.
is more Sri Vidya. So I've heard that, but I'm not an expert on this.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
And
everything you've
Tikkus are, by the way, my in-laws. So
done.
I take interest in that thing.
Shows the path Trika philosophy shows believe Quran and of course the Tripur Sundari is the deity, you know.
Yeah.
I think along the similar lines, the question was about the last name Kol connected to Kola Trika, and I think
I
that's
think so. I
similar.
think so.
Similar.
I think so. But it could be. Um, I have a strong feeling that that's true. That's the case. But I have not seen any literature to kind of establish that linkage.
Yeah, there are other references to the Kol name, including Bhagavan Shankar is referred to as Mahakol. So there is definitely a lot of knowledge and wisdom behind these, but I don't think any of us are in a position ready to discuss these in general.
Yeah, this is very complex. You know how things have evolved over 1,000 years. We have to look.
That is our
So it's interesting. It's interesting, but we haven't. You see, the thing is, as Chris Wallace has said, there's very little known about this. These scriptures have become so distorted because they were not studied, and they've got into our rituals, day-to-day rituals, so much. But over the years, over thousands of years of Mughal rule and then Pathan rule and all, where it was actually being seen as something evil, something, kafir, it got distorted to the extent that, we started hating it. And so when I grew up, I used to say, this is dark ages. What the hell are we talking about? What are we doing? So
So we are over time today, and I think we have answered all the questions that were posted on the Q&A. Is there another question? Oh, there's another. Just one more question came up just recently, and the question is, will you be going into the details of the tattvas? And for instance, what's the difference between the Shiva Shakti, Sadashiva, and Sudha Vidya?
no, I am not able to. I'm not going to be able to do that. But I'm encouraging you to get that audible and listen to it. It's 23 hours. Every one of these has been described in detail. And talking about, like I said, this Ishvara is Allah, and it's also, um, you know, uh, uh, Christ and everything else. So he has described those four very well. And so I encourage you to do that. And of course, we can always go into the deeper dives of this. And next week, our next session, I'm going to be discussing or sharing with you my discussion with Rakesh Kolji. I had that discussion last week, and he gave me some inputs about how we can get deeper dives into some of the topics. And so we'll talk about that next time.
Great.
So I also want to kind of say, just this morning I was kind of reading some magazine, and I was kind of looking at this AI and talking about how people are now, new startup companies are coming up to make this AI experience and AI easier. And so they were talking about how these startups are coming in in California area, and some in UK and all, which are trying to kind of come up with new alternatives to what NVIDIA is doing with their chips for AI. And they were talking about, earlier they used to have the CPUs, the central processing unit, which Intel used to make, and they were doing the AI using those chips. And then NVIDIA came and they had these GPUs, or graphical processing units, and they started making these AI chips. And now they're talking about LPUs, language processing units, and new startups are coming up with language processing units. And next session, I'm going to be talking about language, concept of language in Kashmir Shaivism. And I found that very interesting because I was preparing for last week or so about that next part. And I said, oh, wow, this is kind of very interesting. The way the language processing or the language is described in Kashmir Shaivism is so unique and so thorough, and that some of that can be actually useful for AI work with these language processing units. So Matrika Shakti, you must have heard about Matrika. We used to do puja in Kashmir to these Matrikas in around April time frame. And so all of those are related to language, and I'm going to talk about that next time.
All right.
Just an appetizer for next time.
Next time. That was a good one. That was a good appetizer. So thank you everybody for joining today and making it another successful session. It was a very profound concepts that we all learned today. Have a good rest of the weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Shivanji has got his hand up.
Again. Shivanji.
Yeah, go and unmute me. Give me the prompt to unmute me. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we can.
We can hear you. You're already unmuted.
All Prakran Granth of Tattva Bodha from Chinmaya Mission publication. that defines about various tattvas also. That might give people easy access to information about it, which is not a very big book. It's a small book in English. Chinmaya Mission publication.
But do they have 36 or 25?
Pardon?
Does it
I
25?
think 25.
Yeah. So this is the Kashmir Shaivism has got 36, and the addition of those additional ones, the 11, that is where the gist of Kashmir Shaivism really resides. You know, that's why I thought that. I mean, I'm sure there are others who have expounded on this, but I liked Christopher Wallace. You know, he's
Just an introduction to it for those of us who are very big, who are just on the shores of it. You are in the deep ocean.
No, I'm not. I'm also on the shore. I've probably maybe gone up to the ankles.
And for the rest of us onlookers, may I suggest, Shivanji, if you can put those references in the group chat. We had talked about potentially having a book club at some point of time. So all these references will be helpful for people to ruminate and maybe come together to discuss one of the books. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Namaskar, Marasad.
Namaskar, namaskar. Thank you.